That's right. Good. Yep. Is it nice and clear, isn't it? You can
Yeah,
hear the
it's nice and
tapping.
clear.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. So we're live, Khalid and I, to discuss Muslim matters. Anything on your mind, Khalid?
Yeah, I was just discussing with my African wife a topic that I discussed with my other wife as well about educating women and how I think. Are you aware of the statistic that how does it go? The more educated women get, the more likely they are to get divorced. There seems to be a correlation.
Oh, sure. So some people have made a point about saying that university education has been very, very bad for Western society. Because not only do they get divorced, many of them do not even end up marrying.
Right, yeah, because then they think we might as well, since we went to university, might as well get a career. And the number one reason for not having children is trying to build a career before having children. But then by the time you build a career, because it takes a long time to develop a serious career, like at least till you're 40, then it's too late for women. So I'm not against education, but I'm against a lot of formal education because I think it's in Islam, we're told both men and women have to study until they die, till from the cradle to the grave, or something like that. There's a saying of Prophet Muhammad along those lines. But I think modern education is really bad in so many ways, and so many people are being against. It's not like people are not in the realms of religion. It's not just um, women who are suffering from poor formal education. A lot of people. I don't know if you've heard this as well, that modern education is designed to create workers, not independent thinkers, people who are just to work for the
They're
billionaire
not even
class,
doing
as it were.
that, are they? That's why they keep having to import cheap immigrant labor. They're not even training their own working class who are not fit for employment,
Yeah, I
right? I
heard a
mean,
really
because of their
funny
welfare
YouTube.
state.
Yeah, I heard a funny YouTube short that goes along the lines of, if an immigrant who can't speak English can take your job, then maybe you need to. I don't know if they said maybe you need to be more educated, but like it's clearly that basic education is not working. That even immigrants can take your jobs
Yes,
if you can't speak language.
Jones. Yes, and um, and E. Michael Jones also said, and he's been on your channel, said
Yeah,
that for every abortion that Western women have, an immigrant will replace that baby that could have been born. And nobody can disprove
yeah,
that, can they? I mean,
yeah.
he's basically saying that feminism and the welfare state are a problem, but that has become the sacred cow of the West.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, you think the welfare state is a good thing to protect people from dying too easily. You know, it's a good thing that society has that to some extent, but I think everything
It's a
can
safety
has
net,
its
not
limits.
a
It's
couch.
just yes. Oh, that's brilliant. Exactly. Yes, a safety net, not a couch. And I think that's similar to the Islamic idea that you should be provided the basics, but not luxury. Like there's a verse in the Quran, something along the lines of you should be given shelter, protection from the sun or something, water, whatever. But it's not luxury. Um, and
Yeah,
I think I've been in when I was in England, I would teach people who are not in school, and some of those people, I remember like one particular story where these people, I think generationally don't work. This is a white family that generation you
because
do
of the
not do
welfare
jobs,
state. And, and,
right?
and this,
And this just to finish off the point, this is at Christmas, right? And the girl was complaining that she only got an iPhone and an iPad or something. This is like 10 years ago when they were really really expensive. I mean, they're still expensive, but yeah, like and they
yeah,
don't earn any money, so you know what I mean?
yeah. So really, when you work things out from what you have just said, feminism, the welfare state, and the right to a university education is the sacred cows in
Yeah.
it's their sacred cow. So if you come up against that, you're going to face massive resistance. And the other thing is that slavery was the ancient form of the welfare state, and it was workfare. I don't know if you've heard of workfare, but it's basically the idea that if you're going to pay people money to stay at home, you should make them work, and it's called workfare, and that's what it's called in America. But obviously you're going to add to your costs of the welfare state if you have to hire managers to supervise people who probably don't want to come to work and will not work properly and stuff, and then they worked out it would be just cheaper to pay people to stay at home and do watch porn or whatever it is that they do, and so and then now there's no means testing, and I think now the whole point of UBI is to pay men not to marry, not to have children, because if you just pay men just enough money to survive and play their stupid video games and wank to porn or whatever it is that they like to do, they will never marry, and then they will just die, right, without children.
Yeah, I don't think that's the whole point of UBI. I mean, we could get onto universal basic income, but this is something I was thinking about because it's really controversial. I see formal education as corrupting women, and one of the a lot of men are not going into that as well because they're finding it doesn't get them jobs. Maybe
it's woodwork and metal work, and now they all do cooking, right? This is what has happened to vocational training. There used to be a separation, like if you're a boy, you're going to do metal work.
When my dad was young, they had a choice of like scientific realms or practical
STEM.
STEM almost didn't exist at that time. This is like when my dad went into university, it must have been the 70s. There were hardly any computers around. They're like just massive computers that you'd only find in universities. Mainframes, exactly. Yeah. So, and then not everybody went to university. They had what they call it? Poly something. That like not everybody thought it was necessary to go into sort of university.
Vocational training.
Yeah. They had different types of higher education. Polytechnics, exactly.
Yeah. So now everybody goes to university, and the standard of university education has plummeted. And but the idea is that no, you can't have a society just full of graduates. You can't have more chiefs than you have Indians, which is an American expression of a group of people with more people who want to be the boss than people prepared to carry out orders. And this is what we now have. That's why we can't get anything done. We can't even think straight.
Yeah, and people don't really care. They just they study stuff they're not really interested in. So my specific situation I had recently was my 18-year-old. Both my wives have this idea that they should just be educated through the formal system. Doesn't matter what the statistics are. Women don't care about statistics generally, including my girls, even if they're really good at maths, right? And I was saying to them, my 18-year-old, why instead of going to study a random topic that you claim you're interested in, architecture, but you've never looked at architecture, never looked at YouTube videos on architecture, never ever studied it, like no interest, but just want to go on a course, partly because my Arabian Arab wife thought that would be a thing she could do, because my daughter's good at maths. So instead of doing that, why don't you learn to cook and spend that and travel? Because I think travel teaches you a lot of stuff, right? And she said no, because she just wants to do the normal stuff that people do, like which is go to university and stuff. So she's ended up going to university. Funny story is my son, who didn't go university, just decided to pay for his sister to go to university. So okay, you're taking responsibility. You're not spending it on drugs. You know, he's in London. He could do lots of bad stuff, and I'm proud that he's willing to put his money where his mouth is and commit to something, like use his money usefully. So it's like, okay, fine, go on, let's do that. And one of the reasons why I let my daughter go to university is that I think, although technically I might be right, I don't think not everybody's capable of doing what's right, and most people just need to be normal and just do normal stuff and go to university, even if it makes no sense and you don't really have a passion for it, but you just want to be normal. So that's what I'm thinking about at the moment.
Yeah. So basically, well, recently I went to Speaker's Corner, and somebody was asking me if Islam is compatible with Western values, and obviously I'd say my usual thing, and I mean, what are Western values, and what should be normal?
Oh, is your mic still there? Or maybe your connection I can't hear you. You said what should be normalized, I think, and then you cut out. But yeah, I think that the normalization of ideas is really dangerous. That's what feminism uses through social media. It's
A religion.
Okay, I can hear you again. Yeah.
Yeah, and the irrational. Yeah, so basically, the irrational, you can't, use arguments and facts to move them. They're going to say, what's in it for me? Nobody agrees with you. You and whose army are going to make me do this thing, even though it's right.
My daughter is really good at maths. She says, I hate it when you talk about statistics. It's like, I hate it when you talk about logic. Do you know what I mean? So it's true. And so even though I raised them up, tried to be conservative, it's really hard to protect against feminist ideas through social media and society. It's creeping everywhere.
So we want to normalize these Islamic principles and values. I mean, let's just cut to the chase, because Elliot's getting impatient. He doesn't want to hear about, parenting, because he hasn't got any children. Right, it's just stuff that bores him. But he hates Muslims, and I'm saying, what else but Islam would support marriage and family values, and reverse the aging and shrinking of white people. And probably he won't be interested, because he's an atheist, and he doesn't care what happens to him after he is dead, as long as he gets, to enjoy the remnants of what is Western civilization while he lives. So he doesn't care about, the future of his country. And in the meantime, he's just going to say how much he hates Muslims and, whatever. So, I mean, how are you going to deal with people like that, other than to identify their sacred cows and say, this is what is eating you out of house and home, and you're too scared to even acknowledge the elephant in the room. So the sacred cows are really the elephants in their room, crapping over their carpet that they refuse to acknowledge. So instead, they want to complain about Jews and moan about Muslims until they go to their graves. And this is how they think. So what do you think, as a Muslim, what have you done to change? What can we do to change their minds, other than to say, what else but Sharia would solve your problems?
Well, I think nature has a way of teaching people. So the suicide rates are going through the roof, and people realizing, like, there's a meaning crisis, and so suicide rates are going through the roof in Western countries, where they're not dying because of hunger, they're dying because of lack of meaning in their lives. And what's the point of everything? So if Eliot and co, who are atheists, are not learning from their depression, because it's quite likely to be depressed if you're atheist, then I mean that's one of the ways that gets people to change their wrong ways, I guess. I saw there's a interesting statistic I heard on one of the most popular podcasts in the world, the DOAC, Diary of a CEO, but it's mainly not really a diary of a CEO anymore. It's turned into social issues and talking about them. And that is, a lot of people are coming back to faith and believing in God because they've realized disbelieving in God doesn't solve anything and doesn't make sense. And you start missing out. And there's so much social science or psychology supporting the idea that if you believe in God or connect with a higher being and all that kind of stuff, somehow you feel better, you work better, and so many other things, right? So I suppose if I was to convince people like Elliot that they need to believe in God, is to start looking at statistics, and maybe it's boring for people who don't want to, but okay, not even look at the statistics. Look inside. Like, why are you depressed? Why? What's wrong with your life? Why are you not married? Why are you not? Why are you spending your day wanking over porn instead of having sex with a real person, having a relationship with a real person? All these kind of things. Why is your career not taking off? Why are you not doing so well? Because deep down, life has no meaning, and maybe look again into the science of God. Like, does God exist? Does it make sense to believe in God? There's so much evidence to say you really do have to believe in God, logically or scientifically.
Yeah,
so
this is
kind of
what
answers I'd give. Yeah.
But you see, Eliot calls himself a Buddhist. So and we had an argument about it. So I'm saying Buddhists believe in reincarnation. Who runs reincarnation? Because somebody has to run it, right? You can't just say, oh, there's some, we will naturally be recycled into the next life, which is good, better than the one we currently have if we've been good in this life, and worse than the one we have in our current life if we've been bad. It's like, where's the evidence? How do we know? It's just a story, right? And it would only be logical if there exists a being making a record of all our thoughts and deeds, and deciding if we pass or don't pass the test to go to the better place. That's the only way we can confidently expect that there is justice in the afterlife, if there isn't justice in this life. And that's why belief in the afterlife is necessary to make us act correctly, because believing in God means, oh well, you didn't get your reward in this life, but you'll get to heaven because you obeyed his laws, right? And it's always the people who believe in religion who are the most powerful. Why are these Christians complaining about Jews and Muslims who have a religion and they don't? They don't believe in their own religion.
But you don't want to tell people that they should just believe in God because it has a useful function. It's more logical.
That's what you're doing.
No, I do that, but I also tell people it's more logical to believe in God than not. Like, there's no evidence to say that things can make themselves. Like in our daily lives, I'm looking at a fan or a computer and all that kind of stuff. None of that was made by accident. Yeah. And to believe that evolution is a process of accidents is ridiculous. It's another example of normalization. Somehow you normalized into believing that is possible when you've never ever seen that in your life, right? So I do both. I say being religious is practical, and it will save you from endless problems that we're seeing in the West. The breakdown of the West is, as we both agree, due to a lack of religion, but also it's logical. Like, believing in God is the only logical thing. There's no evidence to say that you can create complex things like ourselves and everything else by a process of accidents.
Carly, we've heard it all before, right? And it's not accepted by.
Sure. Okay, but I'm just saying we shouldn't just say it's functional.
But no, you have to say it's functional, because why else would anybody pretend to believe in stuff that they don't believe in? Why would they do that? The hypocrites are everywhere. The Quran actually says hypocrites go to hell. So why are there all these people who pretend to believe in stuff they don't believe in? Because they want to pretend to be good people, honest people, reasonable people, but in fact they're not. They're just hypocrites. So how can you spot the true believer from the hypocrite just wanting to enjoy the group benefits of being called a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim?
No, that's a
And the only
good
way to do
point.
it is to
Yeah,
observe their standard of
yeah.
observance. That's it. I finished. That's the only way to tell that so and so is a Muslim in good standing. Like, are you frequently found in the casino eating ham sandwiches and drinking a beer and gambling, or are you the kind of Muslim who prays 5 times a day and gives zakat and blah blah blah? So there are two kinds of Muslims, right? The believing and observant one, and the one who is a cultural Muslim. Like, I only pretend to be Muslim because I don't want to offend mom and dad.
So I'm just thinking about your points and Elliot's last point about why you won't become a Muslim. So your earlier point about a minute ago was something like these people who don't have a religion like to see themselves as good people, probably functional, not hypocrites, etc., etc. But a useful way of tackling this problem or is to make them realize that they're not good people because they don't have values.
They tell lies.
They don't stand for anything. Yeah.
And they lie to themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Christians. They pretend to believe in Jesus. It's like, you don't even believe in God. So why do you pretend that Jesus is God? It's so crazy.
Yeah. And you could say similar things to atheists, like, what are your values? What do you stand for? And do you really stand for truth?
They'll say it's personal. What they will say it's personal. So it's like,
sure.
Oh, okay.
But then there's kind of different ways of dealing with it. There's a kind of evolutionary way of dealing with it, which is they're just going to die out. Like, within a generation, they're not going to have kids, and their opinions are not going to matter. And it's for their own sake that they start realizing that, like, nobody really cares what they think, right? And nobody will care what they think. Within a generation, they'll be gone. But not only that, they're going to have a really crappy, depressed life. They're not going to do well in the,
and they'll be complaining about the people who have a religion, right? That's kind of their thing. But what about the Christians? They're also complaining about the Jews and the Muslims, who it would appear have a better religion to them, even though officially, for now anyway, Christianity is still the most powerful religion in the world with the most members in their group. But then, how do they define who is a Christian? I don't think that, all the people counted, I think 3.2 billion, are actually confirmed Christians. They might have
they don't even go to church. They should forget confirmed. I mean, some of them might be confirmed. Let's say maybe they do it just out of a cultural practice. Like, I guess in South America, actually, I don't know what happens in South America, but there's so much gang violence and terrible things happening. I don't know how they're religious.
It was colonized by the Spanish, so I guess there's some residual Catholicism, but basically, even Catholics say we don't really follow the New Testament because there's nothing to follow with the New Testament if you're trying to follow God's laws. So they make it up as they go along. Because, it's basically you have to treat the king as having the divine right to rule because the Pope says he has the divine right to rule. And this worked for a bit until the king said, no, we don't want to listen to you anymore, Pope, said Henry VIII to the Pope. And that began the English Reformation. And basically Henry said, I'm going to be my own Pope, right? Because this is what happened. So who is the Archbishop of Canterbury? He takes instructions from the king, because we know from history that if you're the Archbishop of Canterbury and you give an interpretation of the Bible that your absolute monarch doesn't like, you could find yourself being burnt at the stake for displeasing him. So, I mean, That's how it worked. That's how monarchy worked.
No.
But
So yeah. Yeah. So okay. So we've got this one point that atheists need to be faced with their own hypocrisy or double standards or lack of standards. But then this other point that Eliot's making is that how can you lecture anybody, because you're talking about Islamic values and stuff, but it's very hard to have all these Islamic values and not quite be a Muslim.
Well, I am proposing that the country I live in and any country I don't live in adopt Sharia, and when they do, I would be subject to those laws. So there you go. This is a proposal. So
Yeah.
Obviously, if
You
take
said
everything,
one of the things you said that would be good for a Muslim to do, and that's part of the Quranic teaching, is to pray. I wouldn't say exactly 5 times a day because the Quran doesn't actually say 5 times, but like it talks about regular praying in a certain format, right? So the point is, you can't pray even 3 times a day or a few times a day because you don't believe in you're not sure if God exists. So then you wouldn't be able to practice the teachings of Islam or the Quran 100%. What would you say about that?
well, but I'm not saying secular Quranism is Islam. I'm saying it's a legal system, and people will just keep not, being able to make the distinction between a legal system and a belief system. So a belief system is, in order to be Christian, you have to believe in the Trinity, right? And in order to be a Jew, you have to believe that Moses received the Torah from God on Mount Sinai. And if you're a Muslim, you have to believe that Muhammad is the final prophet of God. That kind of thing.
Not the final, but a prophet of God. Yeah.
I know Ahmadis have a question mark over there, but I'm just saying there are core beliefs to every belief system. Secular Quranism is a legal system, so it says you believe whatever you like, but once you form the conclusion that you want to support marriage in order to keep your group going, whatever your group is, Catholics, Protestants, whatever, you would want the law of the land to support marriage and family values. And what else but what I propose is going to bring it back again? Nobody is even talking about it. The anti-immigration political parties in the UK, they don't talk about that. They just talk about kicking them out, right? I mean, I don't know if you listen to them, but they don't talk about religion. They don't talk about education or privileging married parents or raising the white birth rate. They don't talk about any of that. It's all about hate, hate, hate. Because actually, hate and fear is a very powerful emotion. And that's why they reject all your explanations, because they want to believe that Muslims are going to behead them for not being Muslim. They want to believe that Muslims practice FGM all over the place. They want to be, that's what they want to believe, so they can continue to hate you and fear you. And there's so many of them, and that's why they still think online that they're going to win, because there's more of them than there are of us.
Yeah.
That's how they think. It's herd group mentality.
Yeah.
And as for the Christians, they just want to be middle class, right? But the Americans who still go to church and talk about Christianity, that they just see themselves as white and middle class and educated, and their parents taking them to church, and they just want that. They don't believe in God. They don't want to do anything that God says. They just want to be white and middle class.
So what's the solution? What are we going to do if they don't want to learn? Then what?
Well, you just have to keep trashing the Trinity, which I know you won't do because you want to be nice to all these Christians. And I'm saying,
we could, but you just told me they don't care about these anti-immigrant people. That you just told me they're not interested in religion. So what would be the benefit to them of trashing the Trinity?
Well, you have to go for the people, the hypocrites who claim to be Christian, right? Then you have to go up to them and say, do you realize that Jews and Muslims think you're idolaters who worship an executed blasphemer, and they'll have to say yes or no or whatever, and then, you know, in the end, if you push them into a corner, they'll say, we don't care. We don't care if it's idolatry. We just want to hold on to our beliefs, and we have the right to remain Christian. And it's like, yeah, fine, you know, because Islam does not say it's going to, you know, destroy churches or any place of religious belief. But you have just show.
Shall we trust the Trinity
you don't,
for
you
1
don't
minute?
believe in God.
I don't
You
know.
don't believe God exists to punish anyone for anything, certainly not for idolatry, and certainly not for blasphemy. You don't believe in any of that, so you're basically just a hypocrite. Why be a hypocrite? Because it makes you neurotic, you know, to pretend to believe in things you don't want to. You'll end up hating yourself because of what's called cognitive dissonance. If I'm, you know, the master race and so white and superior and whatever, why am I always complaining about these Jews and Muslims? Like the above me and always having one over me, you know. So it's basically psychological, you know. The in denial that Christianity doesn't work, the in denial that liberalism doesn't work, and the in denial that they can't fix themselves unless they have a big idea that they can unite under and get proper principled political leadership. And they don't have that. So I guess what they're doing is that they don't even dare to hope. That, you know, I speak to them and they say it's, you know, we'll just have to let it collapse. You know, it'll just collapse.
So what are we talking about here right now? Are we just complaining about white people who don't want to help themselves, or are we going to pick a topic and work on a particular? I don't know if we're just complaining right now. Or
No. I am working up to something. So.
Okay.
So the only way to
like a solution of something.
Yes. So we change the narrative. They have a narrative that it's the end for them, right? They're going to be replaced. They're going to be taken over. They're going to be reduced to people living in a pod that will turn into a suicide pod when the government, you know, finds it no longer useful. You know, that kind of thing. And we have to say that they could win if only they went about things in the right way. And the first thing they have to fix is what's in their minds. And only when they resolve to fight back will they have any chance of succeeding.
Sure. What would be the beginning of the right way? Would it be adopt a religion? Or would it be to adopt secular Quranism and not adopt a religion fully? So, okay, let's start with micro questions. What would be the right way in a sentence that could solve these white people's problems?
I would say it is to face in the general direction of where you want to go. I frame it as restoring the patriarchy, restoring the idea that you know, married parents should be privileged over non-parents, and gay people treated as sex offenders. And never married parents treated as sex offenders. Okay,
let's say those are your two tenets.
And then they'll freak out.
But we have to find at least a direction. Okay, fine. So your direction starts with no marriage, no sex outside marriage, or stay married, and homosexual sex is not acceptable sex as illegal sex. Okay, I feel like that's short of what religion provides, and one of the key things it provides is meaning through a belief in God. So would you be missing something if you didn't encourage people to believe in God?
My next point would be that all the 5 world religions support patriarchy. They all do. Even if we don't think much of Hinduism or Buddhism.
No, but you didn't answer my question. Like, God is central to religion, but you're not talking about that. You're not saying that you should accept that. And then they're not really, I don't see them committing to marriage if they don't believe in God.
Most of them can't either. They're past the age of marriage. They're confirmed bachelors. They're about to pop their clogs.
Contradicting yourself now. You're telling these people to get married. Okay.
I know most of them are not marriageable. Nobody wants to marry them. They're confirmed bachelors, but they have some mental health issue,
Who
or
are
they're
they?
sociopaths and
I thought you were
psychopaths.
trying to tell white people how to save themselves, and now,
Yeah, but I
like,
have to explain the situation to you, don't I?
yeah, but
Because
it feels like you're
don't
contradicting
I?
yourself.
Don't I have to
Yeah, go on
explain
then.
why they're
I'll
the
be
way
more
they are
patient.
and they can't,
No, no, but like you're telling them the
oh, they're
solution is get
alcoholics.
married, and
They're
then you're telling
fucking
them there's two.
alcoholics.
Yeah, but okay,
And,
but
and,
then
and
you're not
nobody wants to
talking to
marry them.
them.
Well, they know nobody wants to marry them. So what is the next step? I am anticipating your question. You're saying, oh, it's a bit
Okay, go on.
gloomy. So I'm saying you don't have to be marriageable. You just have to say, I done wrong. Obviously, it's not going to be a good lookout for my race if women of my race don't want to marry me, right? They prefer to have sex with migrants instead, because at least the
Yeah,
migrants are keen. They want to marry these women in order to get a passport, right? And even if these women know
one
that
reason.
these
Yeah.
offers of marriage are not sincere, these have received an offer of marriage, and this is better than being pumped and dumped. Why are you laughing? You don't think
I'm
it's true?
laughing. No, I'm laughing about you. The way you put the reason why immigrants want to marry white people is just for a passport. I mean, there's different kinds of immigrants. There's my family. You could be called immigrants, second generation or third generation immigrants. But they didn't really want to marry white people, to be fair. But because they were like white people didn't have a proper religion or stick to a religion, but some of them did.
I'm
But yeah,
saying
I'm just
some of them
laughing
did
because of
love
that.
each other,
Yeah, it's just
but
that
I'm
you carry.
saying,
Yeah, go on.
there are marriages of convenience, right?
There are. I think that's a minority, though.
And the Home Office has ways of dealing with it too,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, it does happen, and so I mean, people have all kinds of reasons for marrying, and maybe it's not mostly about love. But I'm saying there's a kind of workable bargain. Like women, we still want to be, offered the option of marriage. For once in our lives, it would be nice, right? And if it's not coming from our own men, I guess we have to look up elsewhere, right? I mean, this is how I think both men and women think. I mean, it's not like we all have this sort of queue of potential spouses and we can have them in, small, medium, and large, or white, black, yellow, or brown. We can't specify, right? Whoever turns up is, what's available, I guess. So the point I'm trying to make is that, okay, people like Vincent seem to think that the moment he says, well, everybody has to get married, because even gay people were produced by their heterosexual parents. So even gay people owe their lives to their heterosexual parents. And therefore, the only way to breed humans is through marriage. And all it takes is for him to accept that. But he won't, right? We know he won't. He would rather die and make up
Has
crazy
he
ideas.
given up on the what was
No,
it
he
called?
hasn't.
Artificial womb thing? He hasn't. So why do you
Because
need
the
marriage
Chinese
for
have
artificial
one.
wombs?
Apparently, it's going to be ready for the market next year. The one in China. So he's
Okay.
been gloating that his way may work after all.
But
And
why are you saying he supports marriage even though it's not required for an artificial womb?
No, he supports. He's saying he will allow marriage, but he wants everybody else to breed without getting married. But he's not going to ban marriage, because I guess the most extreme thing he could do is to forbid heterosexual people from marrying.
Okay. I thought he was recommending it. Okay. So he's not recommending marriage. Okay.
No, he's saying heterosexual people have messed things up. Look at the state of the world. Everybody's so retarded and degenerate. His way will be better. That is his premise.
Yeah. Okay.
And obviously, I'm saying marriage is a eugenic practice, whether you believe in God or not, because it forces us to think carefully about who we're going to have sex with, right? And if we think we can only choose once, and once we've chosen, we can't just walk away, for no good reason. And if we do walk away, we're going to be disgraced as people who have had a failed marriage. It's that kind of idea. So we have to think very carefully about who we're going to marry, and then really take it seriously. And that would have the effect of better parented children. Because if you thought through the whole thing, you won't think, oh, what's this thing that's just come out of me? I never wanted it. I don't know who the father is. I'll think I'll throw it in the rubbish bin because I never wanted it. It's that kind of attitude that you do hear happens.
Sure. Yeah. And obviously the problem is if you don't have a reason to get married, then all of this conversation has no value. And most people here have no reason to get married. Actually, they could have one reason to get married, I guess, to have regular sex. But then they won't care about what is the children that come out of it. So that's another problem. I'm just trying to see from a godless point of view, how can you motivate people to have children? You can motivate them to get married for sex.
Privileging married parents. But by telling them, if you're a married parent, you're top of the tree, you're to be respected, you're doing the hard work of rearing the next generation, and you will have, you will be treated as better than non-parents or never married parents. That's enough of a motivator.
The best way to steer society, you're saying, is through not sort of legal economic systems. Like, you will get benefits. Is this your claim, right? Because we can test it quite easily, right? Your claim is that if you get married and have children, you will have economic benefits supported by the legal mechanisms. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But that doesn't work in Scandinavia. You know that doesn't work in Scandinavia, right? Well, it doesn't work for the indigenous population. It's all the immigrants having all the kids in places like Sweden.
Well, but the thing
Do you know the rules? Like in Sweden, you can get one. I've got cousins there, right? They get 1.5 years paid holiday for having children. But they're Pakistanis. The white people are not even having children.
Well, I think it was the Scandinavians that started the culture of casual sex, right? They became very promiscuous, and I think there was a time in the film industry when the idea that Scandinavians were more promiscuous than Western Europeans, and then the Western Europeans became like Scandinavians. So, I mean, the effect of premarital sex is that it will have the effect of delaying marriage. It's obvious when you think about it, isn't it? Because even married parents don't want to have a child every time they have sex, do they?
Well, it doesn't really work like that, but yeah. But you have to have sex quite a lot of times before you have a kid often. Yeah. So premarital sex is an issue. It makes you addicted to... Does it make you addicted to sex? Because you don't get much of it, but the idea of it, chasing it, makes you not interested in marriage, I guess. And then there's so many tropes against marriage. Like there's the joke about the wedding cake is the food. There's a joke about wedding cakes. Like if you eat when your wife eats wedding cake, she stops being interested in sex, right? Which is not really true, but maybe it's what's the truth in that? Obviously wedding cake is not the problem, but is there seems to be, because I've never had a girlfriend outside marriage, but what truth is there? Let's attack some of these social media, I don't know if they're myths, but social media messaging that stops people from getting married. And one is that if you get married, your girlfriend will stop having sex with you or stop wanting to have sex with you. Is there any truth in that?
Well, men have been complaining about it for decades. It's the stuff of
So do you think it's true? And is there any reasoning? And is there any solution? That's what I'm talking about.
And well, I suppose it's the idea of you're married, you get comfortable, you get fat, you might not behave like a good guest in your own home and have disgusting habits, and
Okay,
whatever.
so you get
All the kind of things that people like complain about.
sure. So women are desperate to. Why are they desperate to get married in the first place? Western
Because they want to
women.
have sex. Because they want to have sex and they think it's expected of them. It's an evidence of their attractiveness that they manage to attract.
No, so they want to get.
to settle down.
Wait a second. You're saying Western, because I'm trying to get to tackle this particular problem of white women not wanting sex in marriage. You're saying the reason why they want to get married is because they want to have sex? Oh, I misunderstood.
Well, really, it's. I think the idea is basically, if nobody wants to marry you, there's something wrong with you. You must be unattractive or flawed in some way, or gay, right? I mean, that's how I think Asian parents would kind of motivate their unmarried children. Like, is there something wrong with you? Why haven't you got a girlfriend, boyfriend?
But that's because
Are
they
you
have
gay?
some traditional values, right? That's that you can do that to your kids if you have traditional values. You can use shame, for example, but if you don't care about any values, you can't use shame, like you're saying, like Asian families might do. I think everybody. Okay, I would say the reason why Western women want to get married is to have some for economic reasons, basically, to latch on to a richer person who can, a cash cow, essentially, right? And so they have lots of sex to be liked by that person, these Western women. And then when they get married, they think they've made it, so they stop having sex. Would you think that's a reasonable way of looking at things from a Western atheistic women's point of view?
Well, yes, it's for status, right? I mean, they talk about arm candy, right? And obviously, the higher your status as a man, the more women will want to throw themselves at you, and then you have groupies and rock stars, and the whole idea that you have a queue of young newborn women prepared to have
Sure.
sex.
So the
just because
reason,
you're the lead singer.
the reason why women want money is for status. I
Well,
guess
they
that makes
expect
sense.
you to pay for their stuff and the kids' stuff.
Yeah. Why
So they
else do you
can.
want stuff other than to look good in front of other people? I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, so basically, men want a sex object and women want a meal ticket. I mean, if you want to be brutal about it,
Yeah, let's keep being brutal. But I think it's not just a meal ticket, because women want more than just food. They want to look good in front of their girlfriends, their friends, our girls.
so we have the concept of hypergamy, right?
Yeah.
Women want to sleep their way to the top, that kind of idea.
Yeah. Okay.
And this
Cool.
men complain about because they don't want to be seen as a stepping stone to some woman,
Sure. And the
using
reason
them
why
as
we're talking about this is because women, once they get married, they think they've made it, and then they stop having sex, which is the thing that got them
or they
into
get fat.
marriage. They got fat, or whatever, all that stuff, all the related stuff, right? Is that fair? Is that fair that they get fat, or maybe they have children and then they get fat, because that's kind of what happens a little bit.
Yeah, so the whole idea is, men also get fat, but the point is that they stay together, and obviously, if you keep yourself healthy and nice looking, your spouse is less likely to get annoyed at you and hate the sight of you, etc. Right? I mean, these are all, pretty obvious things. And if you want to have, good sex with your wife or husband, be sure not to be obese and have health issues, and look good and do all the things that make people want to have sex with you, right? So anyway, I mean, I think people already know this, but the idea, if you've been around the block a few times, if you had a lifetime of casual sex, the idea of settling down and paying for the kids with just one person is probably worse than hell, and they would rather die than do that.
Who's the
I think this is what has happened
would rather
today.
die than
marry.
Than marrying. Okay. So they'd rather die than settling down with one person who's going to take care of their children. because once they've had children, I mean, I
Yeah,
think
and
the
then also
problem
the
is
rules
that
of no fault divorce. No fault divorce is ruinous for
hmm,
men, right? Maybe you've heard of that.
yeah, I think that could be a major. That is probably a major issue because let's go back to the essential thing that you're saying Western women want, which is what was the word? To look good. You said it as a nice word. They want to look good. Status, right? They want status. They can still get status by having sex, having children, and then getting divorced and taking half of everything and having no responsibilities, just having the house and everything by having got married long enough or something to take enough stuff, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I'm just working through how. So I'm just trying to target the problem. The problem could be no fault divorce. Like imagine
It is
there
no fault
was no
divorce.
divorce. What is no fault divorce? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, no, we know, but we both know what it is, and we
Okay,
also both know that there are no men campaigning to abolish it. They're not
right.
interested because they think they can have sex with women without marrying them. So that it's
Hmm.
like they don't want to marry anyway. So they won't be campaigning to abolish no fault divorce.
Yeah, interesting.
So
It's
even the
interesting
people,
also that Muslims are not famous for campaigning against it. I think maybe Muslims, what are Muslims campaigning against? Like,
well, I've
uh,
met divorced
hmm.
Muslim men who complain to me, and I say, well, but your Sharia councils, and he said, yeah, we went to a Sharia court, but it can't be enforced. It can't be enforced against my wife. So they go
Yeah,
to the Sharia council, I mean, and the arbitrator says this and that and finds in favor of the husband, and the wife just ignores it.
and I think it's not even just no fault divorce. It's the fact that women get 50% of everything. That's the real problem, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
if
and then
you could say there was a time, I think, when I mean, I'm not even sure exactly when it was, but a couple of 100 years ago, where people were getting, even men were divorcing their wives to put it bluntly, to get a newer model. Let's say because Muslim men could have four wives, and they'll say, toss this one out the window, let's get another one. And it wasn't a problem for men because at that time, women wouldn't get much. They would get something, but they wouldn't get like a permanent, oh, I'm going to keep feeding you for, you know what I mean? So there was no economic benefit in for women for getting divorced. So I think a major issue is women get a lot from getting divorced. What would you say?
well,
Economic.
yes, I mean, there's even a term for them called gold diggers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's why men won't marry. So, to address the issue of making marriage a good bargain for men again, you would be proposing to abolish no fault divorce. But nobody's interested because these men can only think as far as the length of their penis, I suppose. So they
Hmm.
don't think of it. They don't want to get married, and you know, and now it's normalized to cohabit.
But
But
even if you look, you can't look beyond the length of your penis, right? At least if you want sex, then you should start asking a question: how do you get lots of regular sex? And that's basically being successful financially. So it's not all bad. Okay, it could be a motivate. I think that's evolution's way of motivating you to do
But
well. So it's not. Yeah.
there are bachelors who boast about their little black book and full of the numbers of women who are prepared to have sex with them if they buy them dinner, right?
Sure. So that could be stage one. And then you could get to stage one and then realize that it's a bit crap having sex with lots of strangers all the time. Or, I mean, at least get to stage one, maybe. I don't know. Get economically, maybe experience the fact that you can have sex with lots of people. And then maybe once you get to that stage, start thinking, is it really fulfilling? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So often people just want somebody to be there when they're sick, or just to be already there, not have to be called, right? But
Hmm.
they also make jokes about, it is better to pay a prostitute than to have sex free, because what you pay the prostitute for is not just to have sex with you, it's to go away when you're finished with her, right? That's
Hmm.
how they think. They want
Yeah.
her to go
Now,
away.
so most people are human, and being human, you're social and you like to be loved. And so, do you really want this? Is just talking to those people who make the argument that it's better to have a prostitute than a wife. Do you really want to have sex with somebody who you won't spend the rest of the day with, you won't have a conversation with, and that person will go and have sex with somebody else? I don't think that actually works for anybody, really.
Yes, and this makes me think of, the spiritual reasons for getting married. And I know somebody who married, I think, 2 years ago, and she said marriage is getting somebody to remember the important points of your life with.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
helping you remember things
Have a
about.
journey with somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Hmm.
so, you have shared memories of your children, if you have children, or holidays, or whatever. So the fact that they're still around you confirms your own identity, you see. So I
Yeah.
mean, I think we're
Yeah.
quite,
It's a
you know
shared story, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
yes, do you
Yeah.
remember when we were kids and we did this, with
Yeah. Exactly. You
siblings
don't
or
say, "Do
school
you remember
friends?
20 years ago to a prostitute?" There's nothing. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I,
yeah.
I kind of want to wind up. We did start a few minutes late. I've got like endless things to do, but we could maybe wind up by answering one of the few questions. Like Elliot's got to say something. Elliot's saying something like, "How many ATIQ dullards can a society support?" And I guess what I don't know where he's coming from, but maybe that's a question worth answering. I don't know.
Well, he's implying that Muslims are ATIQ tolerant, but I can.
I mean, we could answer that. Like, okay, look at the average Muslim. Okay, there's two approaches. You can say either the average Muslim is not an ATIQ dullard because a lot of them are your doctors.
Engineers,
Or yeah, exactly. Um, or you
home
can look at
secretaries,
right, exactly, your mayor and all that kind of stuff, right? London mayor if you're in London. Or you can say, okay, if you're going to exclusively look at the Muslims who have recently just got off the boat as immigrants in the UK or wherever, right? So maybe they're like the most desperate kind, yeah, and they're low IQ. Are you saying the low IQ people are taking your jobs as well? Like, which way are you looking at this? It doesn't work either way. Do you know what I mean? You can either say they're more clever than you, and that's why they're taking your jobs, or you can say they're more stupid than you, but then how are they taking your jobs? Um,
mm.
yeah. So the argument's not very useful.
Well, they're
But
prepared to
okay, you
work
know
for
what? Go on,
less.
go on, go on.
They're just
Sorry.
prepared to work for less, right? And prepared to suffer and live,
Hmm.
I don't know, 20 to a house or whatever until they make their
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
And then they'll start
So
bossing
they've
you
got a
around.
game plan. They're willing to sacrifice. They win the marshmallow game of they'll not have the marshmallow right now. If any people must know about the marshmallow test, right? The willingness to defer pleasure. So they're willing to grind, work hard until they're successful, I guess. But I do agree, though, in controlled borders. But
Yes.
the problem is that Western society depends on immigrant labor. That's the
Yeah, because they
problem.
haven't got their own working class now. If you think of the West as a body, the face may be white and the torso may be white, but the arms and the legs, which is an analogy for the working class, would be brown.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I don't think the working class mind being brown. Like brown people don't mind working up the ladder and stuff like that. It's just that white people who should have been the managers didn't educate themselves enough to reach that status. So brown people ended up taking it. My own experience in London, at least, is that brown people are taking all the jobs, low level jobs, high level jobs, everything. Like I'm a teacher. I think all the in the private schools, all the top jobs were taken by brown people, basically. Maybe one black person. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
Was it a private school that you're thinking of?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think of. Maybe a lot of normal schools are really bad. So okay. The last non-private school I worked in, there were white people sort of in charge. There was one black person in charge of the whole department. And the white people, they were so unstable, really. But yeah, but
in what way?
Talking about drugs, talking about they're like meant to come with like my superior would come up, he would not be married. He'd be always talking about how to cheat on his wife or stuff like that.
Oh dear.
And he would have, like, there's one day, just to give you an idea of what his mental state was, he would come with his knuckles or chew, like covered in plaster. This is a white person, right? He used to be a trader, like a stock trader or a coder for stock traders, but then he had a mental breakdown. So white people are just having one mental breakdown after the other, and they keep going down and down the ranks. So he started with that high-paying job. He couldn't keep it, so he's become a teacher, and then he comes as a teacher with a mental health problem. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look too good for them. Yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, the teaching profession is not the best profession. It's like people are doing really badly go into that. I don't work in schools anymore. I just work privately as a private tutor. Yeah. So yeah, there's that, but yeah, I'm coming back to what Elliot was saying about how many 80 IQ dullards, whatever. If he's saying immigrants are stupid or something, besides the fact that they're taking your job, so that even though it's more stupid, they're more capable somehow, and he's done nothing to overcome that. Yeah, you need to be useful enough or have enough technology to maintain your country so that you don't need the immigrants. But I suppose I'm repeating myself. How did Britain achieve an empire without the benefit of Islam? Because they had Christianity. So come back to Christianity and strong Christian values. I've been on, Central London Speakers Corner telling Christians, go back to Christianity. If you don't want to become a Muslim, at least have some values. But people don't even have that. So what do you think about that answer, Elliot? They had a religion, which is what Claire keeps talking about. At least have a religion. So you've got a set of values that you can stick by, that your bedrock, your foundations, so you don't crumble every 5 minutes like atheists do. So.
Yeah, because I mean, we talked about values. It's family values, right? And you can't have a family if you don't marry first. And at least the Americans still have the right terminology about the marriage certificate, because in the UK we call it the marriage certificate, but in America they call it the marriage license. So so the marriage licenses the couple to have sex and children with each other, and if they did it without the marriage license, it's illicit. And therefore the child would be illegitimate. I mean, the language is still there, but they're not putting two and two together. And basically, even if you don't believe in God, obviously, if you're going to keep your country in existence, you have to people it, so there are enough people to do the stuff that needs to be done. You need a labor force, and to produce a labor force, you need men and women to marry each other and stay together long term to bring up the children. It's so simple, but try explaining it to them.
Yeah. Yeah, so as I'm winding up, I do try to think, what is the benefit of this conversation? And I like to think that the people in the live stream, in the live chat, who seem to be regulars, maybe they're absorbing these basic ideas that they need to fix their lives. So we can hope. All right, we'll
Well,
keep at it. Yeah.
yes. I'll answer the rest of their questions when you go. But yes, I mean it is simple, and obviously even when people didn't believe in God, they were forced by society's mores to marry before they have children, or
Yeah,
else.
but the only reason, even if they didn't believe in God, at least society in general believed in God. So then, therefore, shaming would work. But when you
Hmm,
all don't believe in God, that no longer works. So that's what's happened to society. All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Catch you
thank you
next
for
week.
coming. Catch you next
Welcome.
week.
All right. Bye.
Yes. Now, I don't know if Joel has gone, but I will try to answer Elliot's questions. Um, Islam would restore the patriarchy, and once a patriarchy is restored, it would mean the dominance of married fathers, and married fathers would um, vote against immigration, would you say, Elliot? That is how I propose to get secular Quranism to restore the patriarchy, so that as a society of married fathers, you will keep out the immigrants. And for those already here, immigrants, they would, I think, support patriarchy because they don't want to merge into the wider culture that is degenerate and obviously against traditional values. So if you make it simple for these people and say it's either patriarchy or the status quo, which is matriarchy, which is degenerate, which has caused Western civilization to fall and falter. Um, it's easy to retrace your footsteps once you've worked out you're lost. And obviously all ancient civilizations used marriage to perpetuate the group. And also the family is a group that it's a self-help group, right? It's a group of buddies that who are supposed to help each other and listen to each other's problems, and a group that you can discuss politics with, rather than the current situation where everybody's on social media because they're too afraid to talk to members of their own family because they've long ago disowned them, I guess. I want to answer the question of Elliot about how Britain acquired an empire without Islam. I'm actually saying that there was a time when the British were unconsciously Muslim, and they would not have had any problem at all with Sharia as I would interpret it. So they tried to be their own propaganda about, the honour of an Englishman and an Englishman's handshake as his word, and that kind of thing. And to an extent, they believed in it, and they managed to get others to believe in it and do deals with them. So they had this reputation of being powerful and honourable, even if they often were not conforming to this stereotype. No, I do not agree, Elliot, that Britain should re-embrace Christianity, because Christianity was really a horrible religion that has traumatized Europeans all over the world. Most of them do not know church history, but if they did, they would know that theological concepts like the Trinity were made up as the church authorities went along. What was made up was lies to explain the Trinity. The Trinity had to be the Trinity because Jews would predictably argue, if they were arguing properly against Christians, if they weren't afraid to say what they really thought, the Jew would just make the point that a crucified Christ cannot be as powerful as a God of Israel. And every time the Christian would lose until Athanasius came up with the idea of the Trinity, which is to say that Jesus is co-equal, co-eternal, and co-substantial with God. And obviously, the doctrine of the Trinity would be subject to Occam's razor, because so many questions would be asked, like, well, how is Jesus co-equal when he died? How is Jesus co-eternal with God when there was a time before Jesus was born? And how can Jesus be co-substantial with God when Jews believe God not to be physical or material? It doesn't make sense. And if you asked any of these questions, you would be burnt at the stake. So no, thank you. We don't want this horrible religion anywhere in the world. And that is why the founding fathers started the American Revolution to quarantine their state from these absurd beliefs. Eliot further asks, why are the Chinese in San Francisco so successful without the benefit of the Quran? Well, the Chinese are traditional, and traditional people feel that they have to get married, and they do, and by doing so, they are less likely to be bad single mothers and have more successful children. So really, marriage is a child protection scheme which 50 years of feminism has utterly undermined. Have I made my opinion of Christianity plain to E. Michael Jones? Well, he follows me on X. He must read some of my tweets. I know people, friends even, who say they can't stand it and have to unfollow me. But I think he doesn't understand. I mean, I have said, quite gently to him that Trinity is idolatry. And yes, we even did discuss the Trinity, and he did say in an unguarded moment that he found Arianism easier to believe than the Trinity. So I don't think he's thought through the whole thing properly. E. Michael Jones is not that interested in theological matters. He is a very creative philosopher, but you know what? I think he's using Jews as a way of, as a stick to beat the Episcopalians with. And I think this is really what he's trying to do. I mean, I don't think, ultimately Jews are even his target. I mean, I have argued with him and said, look, the Jews you're having a problem with, the liberal secular Jews. And if you asked religious Jews, they would disown them and say, these Reform Jews, these liberal Jews, these secular Jews, they are heretics. We want nothing to do with them. But, who listens to ultra-Orthodox rabbis anyway? No one. Not even Jews. That is the issue. Not even Jews listen to rabbis. If you want to, pretend you're religious and want to seem to be authentically Jewish, yes, you would have something to do with rabbis. But even then, you have many different categories of Jews now. There used to be, well, I suppose it started with an observant Jew and a non-observant Jew, and now you have what could conservative Jews, liberal Jews, totally atheist Jews who don't even go to synagogue. Then you have modern Orthodox, Reform, and ultra-Orthodox. And ultra-Orthodox are the fundamentalists, which actually I only listen to them because then you know what Jews are really, really supposed to believe in. And for the other kinds of rabbis, they're the ones saying, yes and no at the same time, putting into operation Duvitt's favorite idea, the multiple truth hypothesis, which is just a pretentious way of saying, that you want your cake after having eaten it, which is basically saying yes and no at the same time, such as, is it raining in the same place at the same time? And you want to say yes and no. So I don't think it helps Jews to be so prevaricating, and obviously if you will not be pinned down to answer clearly on any question, of course you can slime your way out of any question, So you can say yes to someone and no to another person asking exactly the same question, which is a politician's ploy. How have the Chinese resisted? They haven't resisted feminism. So you might like to try this on DeepSeek. This is what I did. I asked some compromising question about feminism. As you know, DeepSeek is Chinese AI. And what DeepSeek does is you can see it generating the answer, and you're sort of reading it and reading it say on the one hand this, on the other hand that, and then it deletes its own answer and says, shall we talk about something else? So there you go. It's a very sensitive issue, even amongst the Chinese. And I think they're in trouble because in Sichuan province, the local government there has decided that not to discriminate against unmarried mothers. So it's only a matter of time before the Chinese go the way of the West. Yes, Jones is obsessed with his Catholicism because it is his identity, right? And I guess in America you have, a different strain of white people, and he goes on about being Irish and German, and this is a peculiarly American ethnicity, presumably because the Anglos in America refused to marry Catholics, and the Catholic Germans and Irish had to marry each other, and that's why you get this very large group of white Americans who are Catholic and Irish and German. With a visceral hatred for the English. I have, I should tell you that Josh Neal, who is obviously from an Irish Catholic background, once told me, and you may have heard this, Elliot, on Church of Entropy, he threatened to strangle me until I was dead, and because he hated my accent. Obviously, I don't think it was because he thinks I'm, he thought I was English. So talking to a lot of Irish Americans, I get I get a lot of hatred directed at the English people, and it sometimes. Okay, I would say it's like, you open a cupboard thinking it's a cupboard, but it's a furnace, and you get this hate and heat directed at you to your great surprise. So there is certainly a lot of Anglophobia still held by Americans. I know an Irishman who was convinced that the English started the Irish potato famine deliberately, on purpose, because they were such a bunch of villains. So, yes, E. Michael Jones wants to use the Jews as a stick to beat the English with. I believe that his wife is Episcopalian. So there's probably a lot of psychology there. But okay, let me start again. I think E. Michael Jones is using the Jews as a stick to smack the Anglicans with, because his narrative is that we Catholics, we knew exactly how to treat the Jews by inquisitioning them and making sure they knew what's what and never letting them get away with anything. And then the Episcopalians took over and they ruled the world and they liberalized and blah, blah. And they didn't know how to deal with the Jews and they were nice to the Jews. And look what has become of Western civilization. It is all the fault of Henry VIII, and he was a serial adulterer and some, a glutton who couldn't control his appetite, and so on and so forth. So I know this is what Catholics say of the Church of England. Yes, Josh Neal was one of Richard Spencer's buddies. Very good-looking man. But anyway, he wanted to strangle me. And I think it was because he didn't like my accent. Right. It wasn't because he thought I was non-white or something. So I'm going to look up this Hebrew word that you looked up. All right. Shugana is Yiddish slang for crazy, eccentric, or irrational person. And it can also refer to nonsense. I'm glad you mentioned Duvid, because Daniel Hockey Conchu mentioned Duvid and praised him. So there, Daniel Hockey Conchu praised Duvid. Go and watch the Hockey Cut show. So he does mention Duvid. He seems to have had a very favourable impression of Duvid. So maybe Duvid is doing some good. But the thing is, people don't really know that Orthodox Jews would consider him a mamzer and a heretic. So, but anyway, I guess he's, helping towards Jewish-Muslim cooperation, and they need to cooperate in order to call out the idolatry of Christianity, so that white people will sooner rather than later reject Christianity once they realize its horrible history of burning heretics at the stake. But since I don't think they learn any of this at school. So what I'm saying would be new to them, and of course they're going to reject it because they'll find reasons to hate me with my horrible message. But what they need to do is, I suppose, come to terms with the fact that they've been lied to since the 4th century, which is a big ask, I suppose. A lot of people would want to continue denying that their governments have been so horrible, that they have consigned all their ancestors to hell properly for idolatry and blasphemy. But a few interesting recent events suggest that even amongst white people, there is a reaction against Christianity. You may remember Adam Schiff, who took it into his head to execute Christian pastors and Catholic priests. I forget who his victim was exactly, because they broke the first and second commandments. So Adam Schiff was actually from a middle-class white Christian family, but that was what he's now in prison for. I don't know when his trial is, but obviously it's something that has made him question Christianity. Charlie Kirk was, I would argue, assassinated for identifying as a Christian nationalist. And I would say that Christian nationalism is profoundly un-American, if to be un-American is to be unconstitutional. Because if Christian nationalists all got their way, they would be passing a Christian amendment to make America officially and a Christian republic. This has been done in American Samoa. So when this done, or if this were ever done, it would mean the implicit repeal of the First Amendment, and this would just be walking back on 250 years of Christian Western history. So I think whether you're feminist or believe in God, you would find this possibility horrendous and objectionable, and particularly un-American, I would argue. Yes, Josh Neal can seem to be good-natured. I mean, he is a good-looking young man. I think he and Jen were discussing accents. I think I was in the chat, and then he said he hated my accent, and that was what he said. Okay, I'll have a look at Richard Carrier. And I will now end the space. Thank you for your interesting questions, Elliot. And yes, I've enjoyed answering your question very much. Thank you for coming.